This is Caroline Wigmore, and I'm here at the Arcola. I've just watched Carousel, a beautiful production, and I'm here with some of the creatives to talk about the process, and I'm just going to hand it over to them.
Hello, I'm Luke Fredericks. I'm the director of Carousel, and I'm with
Andrew Corcoran. It's been a while since I've done a Musical Talk podcast, but it's very nice to be back here with Luke, the director as well, and I'm the musical director for this version of Carousel that we've done.
Great. Well, if you're at all familiar with the production, you'll know that this is a very ambitious project. And would you like to speak a little bit about maybe some of the challenges you faced with this particular show?
Wow, the challenges. I think the biggest challenge was certainly in the planning stages of how do you take a massive Broadway classic and kind of imagine it for, we have a cast of 14 and a band of 5, sort of stripping it back to just tell the story with those people was probably the biggest challenge, but actually probably the most exciting part of it really. Stripping everything back, realising that actually the story about Billy and Julie is so simple and yet so profound that you don't need, I think the original cast on Broadway had something like 70 people in it.
Really?
And we've got 14 and it still tells the same
Really?
story. So, yeah, I said that was the biggest challenge. And then also, how do you take an orchestration for something like 20 plus instruments and condense it down to 5, which Andrew and Mark Cumberland, our orchestrator, and Larry Blank, our musical supervisor, have done incredibly.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the orchestrations and how you made those choices to choose those specific instruments. And
Well, yeah, we had a little meeting approximately 2 months before we started any rehearsals. Myself, Luke, and the orchestrator, Mark Cumberland, met over a coffee. And it was there where Luke basically said, all right, I'd like to have 5 players involved, but it's carte blanche as to what 5 they be. So, yeah, we sat there for 10 or 15 minutes or so, and we went, right, here's this gorgeous orchestration of Carousel, and what do we do with it? And the decision was made in the very end to go with, I'm looking up at the bandstand now to remind myself, I don't see why I need to, piano, harp, percussion, woodwind and bass, and the woodwind player plays flute piccolo and clarinet. And the big decision, obviously, out of those was to bring a harp player in to the show. It was between harp and guitar, and there were a couple of other discussions as well, but there was this feeling, and it was Kim Poster actually who turned around the end and went, I am so happy you have a harp involved. And it really proves, it doesn't matter how small the band is, you would imagine that the harp would be there for the odd arpeggio or glissando that it might play.
heaven scenes.
Oh, exactly, yes.
But you used it quite consistently.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Alex, our harp player, turned around and said, well, if you want me to play it like a guitar, I can. So we've worked in ways that he becomes almost a guitarist in places, and it's been that way of exploiting the instruments. You'll notice as well that there's no synthesizer particularly. I mean, I use an electric piano in this show for the reasons of circumstance, but it was Mark Cumberland who said it was so nice to be able to orchestrate for 5 instruments rather than it might be 4 instruments and then it can do string pads at this moment, or it can be an extra flute or a synthetic noises if it needs to be. It was so nice to be able to then go, right, these are all the instruments we have, and I think he works very well that way, and it shows in the orchestration as it's come about.
It's amazing the detail in that music that Mark and Andrew have got into this arrangement, but how that music tells a story. It's fascinating that the characters are there in the music as well as the lyrics, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a classic show. It's all there. We sometimes joke in rehearsals that it's a bit like Shakespeare, and everyone says, everything's there in Shakespeare. Okay, it's not 400 years old, but it's a classic for a reason, and certainly I really hope we've managed to get some of that across.
Tell me a bit about the dance. There's such beautiful choreography in this piece, and quite complex as well. There are entire scenes that are basically just dance without dialogue, and it's quite an undertaking to be able to hold the audience's attention without spoon-feeding us what we're supposed to be understanding about the scene. Tell me about that.
The key, I think, to the choreography is Lee Proud, the choreographer. He is a bit of a genius, not just in the moves he creates, but in the story he tells. And I think from what you've just said, and certainly from feedback we've been getting, his ability to tell story through dance is pretty exceptional, as well as we have the most amazing cast and dancers who can work through that choreography. I think the key to it, and we talked a lot with Kim about this at the start, Kim Poster, who's our creative consultant, the whole world of musicals, Broadway musicals, it's that integration of dance and acting and singing. And working with Leah, from my point of view as a director, has been amazing to take a scene through song and bring the dance into it, so everything sort of flows between the three sort of disciplines, rather than being, we act a bit, now we stand still and sing, now the dancing comes. It sort of much more blends in. And Lee's eye for detail and colour and texture and for his dance is just amazing. So it's been a real joy, and it just lifts, the really dramatic heavy moments in the show, and the dance comes in and it lifts where it needs to, it tells a story where it needs to, and it's pretty incredible what he's achieved on this space, which is 8 metres by 6, I think, something like that. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm interested in if you've had feedback from older audience members that maybe feel a lot of nostalgia about this show from their own childhoods.
It's only our third preview we've just done, but we had yesterday a lady from America with her husband came over, and they saw the original 54 production, I think it was, at Drury Lane. I may have got that wrong, but the original sort of West End version, and they just adore the music. The music, they grew up with the music, and it means so much to them from a sort of nostalgic point of view, and it evokes happy times. That people remember the film, sort of the older generations. Certainly, when it came out, that and Oklahoma and those big sort of Hollywood musicals at the time, just sort of took people away from. They took people to that exciting world of Hollywood and a different world to what we know over here. And I think that nostalgic value is certainly coming back. But also, it's interesting, we had a school party in today of teenagers who just at the end jumped up on their feet. So yeah, it's a story that I think works on many different levels, which is, I'm only now the audience are coming in realising, so yeah, it's fab.
Getting the audience in, that's been our next step while we're working through previews. This was our third preview now. And a lot of what, there's only so much you can shape in a rehearsal room before you then have to get the audience in, and then you go, oh, well, that bit's working, that bit's not quite working, work it out from that. So in some ways, yeah, the responses of these preview audiences are really important to us to work out, the direction we want to go with it.
Are you continuing to shape the piece at this point?
Absolutely. We have press night on Monday, and I'm sure you've seen it, it's quite a technical show. There's lots of pulleys. A lot of the world that Stuart, the designer, has created is this sense of tents and carnival, and coming into a tech rehearsal in a space like the Arcola, it's been quite a challenge. So it's during the previews we're sort of tweaking the acting moments, the music moments, all those are just being coloured all the time while bringing the technical in and keeping that going. So it's been a real challenge, but the cast, especially tonight, the third performance, they've just lifted up another gear. They're incredible, and the band as well. It's just blending in really nicely, and knowing we've got 2 more shows tomorrow is quite a nice sort of, we feel ready for our press night. And of course press night's terrifying when you go in front of the critics and they go, this is what I think. So yeah, terrifying, but they're getting stronger and stronger. The detail in the characterisation is incredible, and it's just a beautiful work being witnessed. So yeah,
great. What do you think is the highlight of the show for you?
The highlight of there's so many moments, the way it sort of, I call it sort of, the heights and the lows that the show goes to, and they all evoke their various, there's interest in all of those, I suppose. But there was a moment when we were in a run, I think it was our first run of the show in the rehearsal room actually, where I actually did the section involving Billy Bigelow coming back to Julie, and the way, I won't spoil too much of the way that Luke has directed the show, but we had this moment of a look between 2 characters, which you're not expecting to happen at this moment, and we're playing underscore at the moment, and I just froze the underscore at that moment, and I very much did it in a heat of the moment almost type thing. It just felt right to do in a very unexpected place, and it was almost like time suddenly stood still for a moment, and it's kind of stayed with it. But I just remember that moment in rehearsal and going, oh, this is what we can do with this piece. And it's been a fantastic piece. It's really grown on me, and then it's grown on me even more, and then it's grown on me even more, and it's amazing. And even now, just adding all these elements together and doing the show, it continues to grow on me. Just how ridiculously clever this score is, and And the book,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's just, the way you can trust the score and the script and just let it happen, and it gives so much back. It does give so much back, this piece.
Yeah, so much.
Can you tell us where we might find information about your show online? And
We have a show website, which is carousel2014.com, which is just basically an information point. But the tickets are on the arcolatheatre.com website as well. And we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter at Carousel2014. And yeah, follow us. We've got some of the cast are taking over our Twitter at the moment. We have our Star Keeper going crazy. Come and see the show.
great. Well, you heard it first on Musical Talk.